You're watching Fighting Dirty with Hank Balch.
Hey, Sterile Processing Universe, it's Hank Balch here. I've got a fun one for you today. We're going to be talking about resumes, and in particular, how to make a killer sterile processing resume. Now, there's some information out there on the internet about resumes, right? Yeah, more like hundreds of thousands of different websites telling you what a great resume is. There's templates, there's training, and I'm sure if you've got a job, you've probably had to create a resume or two before. But hopefully through this video, I'm going to give you a few real-life tips from someone who has looked at literally hundreds and hundreds of resumes over the past decade. Hiring, firing, promoting, recruiting. I know what a good sterile processing resume looks like, and more importantly, I know what a bad one looks like. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to talk about building your professional persona and give you a little bit of insight into what it means to be a professional in the public eye. Number one, you have got a persona already, whether you know it or not. It's out there. Folks have an opinion about you. Yep, you. And so because they've got an opinion about you, it's important for you to be aware of what it is. Number two, the world can most likely see it. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I know some of y'all are real sneaky and you can lock down your account. But if you've ever been published on the internet about anything, Google can almost certainly find it. And speaking of Google, number three, hiring managers oftentimes will search it out. I'm not going to lie. When I got applications from folks that I didn't know, one of the first things I did is go to Google, type, go to Facebook, type, and if I saw content come up that looked unprofessional, the bottom of the pile. That's what I did. And if I did, guys, I can promise you other folks did it too. Here's the good news, though. Number four, even if you've got a persona out there that you don't like or that is unprofessional, you can change it. The power of the internet is real. Number five, you need to update your persona often. So what I mean by that is, if there's still some blog out there from 20 years ago, yeah, we had the internet 20 years ago. If there's some blog out there with your name on it about all these opinions that you no longer have, it's probably a good idea to track that blog down, shut it down, lock it down, delete it, and then carry on with your new professional persona in sterile processing. Number six, it is a small world. Very, very small, especially as you talk about sterile processing. So do not think that just because you're moving to another state or another hospital that you're going to be able to outrun your persona. Folks talk, and folks in this industry often know each other. So just be aware of that. Number seven, professional networks are no joke. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. That's an online professional network, but many of y'all are members of either ISHM or CBSPD. That's a great opportunity to get to know other folks and grow. But again, it means more folks know you and can find out information about you even without you knowing it. Number eight, birds of a professional feather flock together. So what I mean by that is, if you're running with the guys or gals in your department that are always cutting corners, always complaining, always coming in late, that gives you your own professional persona, even if you're not doing those kinds of things. If you're running with them, I can almost guarantee you your department leader is thinking, yeah, that Hank guy, he's always with those other guys who are late. And he may even start thinking, yeah, he's always late, even if you're not. All of that bad stuff can rub off on you, even if you're not the one who's actually doing it. Number nine, building a professional persona is hard work. You have to be at it nearly every day. I will talk more in another video about how you can build your own personal brand on the internet. But for now, just know it's going to take time either way. Alright, so that's your professional persona. But let's get to talking about resumes, because after all, that's what this video is about, right? Alright, so one of the biggest mistakes that I see made almost every day in resumes that come across my desk you have unprofessional emails. I see booboo69 at yahoo.com. I see XXX Breaking Bad at hotmail.com. Those kinds of emails might have been okay in high school, might have slid by in college, but now we're in the real world and you need to get real professional email addresses. So once you get that professional email address, now we can actually get down to drafting a killer resume. Here's my first piece of advice. Realize there is no perfect resume. I don't care who's talking to you, me or Jack Welch or Tim Cook or any of these gurus out there in business. It ultimately comes down to who it is who's reading your resume. So what I'm going to tell you, yes, I think that it makes powerful, persuasive resumes. That being said, the most powerful and persuasive thing of all is actually knowing someone in person, and that goes back to building a powerful network to begin with. So either way, a great resume is always second best. As you sit down and draft a resume, you need to realize it's going to take you some time. If you're under the impression that you will be able to write a great resume in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, you're kidding yourself. You should really be looking at spending 3-4 hours, maybe a day or two, off and on, as you come back again and again and again to keep adding to the resume, cleaning it up, and reviewing formatting. So yes, it's going to take you a lot of time. But look at it this way. If it lands you the job, especially if it lands you the promotion, 3-4 hours of your entire life, totally worth it. 10 grand more, 20 grand more a year, yeah, I would say spending 3 hours is definitely worth a time investment for that. Now, what's taking you so long? Isn't it just cut and paste from the job description, add in some dates, and voila, you have a resume? No. All you have is a record of where you worked. That is not the same thing as a resume. What you want to do in your resume truly is tell a story about who you are and who you can be for the job that you're applying to. So let me give you a good example of that. One of the best resumes that I ever saw in a sterile processing interview came from a lady who had been working at a daycare center. Kid you not. No healthcare experience whatsoever. She was coming in off the street to get a sterile processing job. But she had read the job description ahead of time, realized the types of things that we did in the department, and the type of person that we wanted. She wrote her entire resume based on that type of job description, that category of skills. So for instance, in talking about her duties at the daycare center, she mentioned in her resume that she would daily have to disinfect all of the toys after the kids had played with them, that she would daily have to clean and sanitize the nap time mats and the floors. All the kinds of things, obviously, that are as close to applicable as possible to the sterile processing job. She took the time to write that into her resume. Now, what this told me again is that she really wanted the job, and she understood that whatever her background, she had applicable skills. This means for you, especially if you're coming outside of a different industry into sterile processing, I don't care what it is. Let's say that you worked at a nursery. Explain in your resume not just what your job duties were, but explain how those job duties could help you and show why you would make a great sterile processing tech. Maybe in the nursery, for instance, the plant nursery or the greenhouse, you were responsible for checking humidity on a daily basis to make sure that you're not going out of spec for the plants. That's a great application again to what we do in sterile processing. You have to keep close documentation logs of when things are planted and when they expire. All of that kind of information can really key into a hiring manager that, yeah, this person will need some sterile processing training, but they've got the general idea of detailed documentation and the importance of standards. All of this is what takes the 3-4 hours of time to really craft a good resume, and it means thinking about what you've done and thinking about what you want to do. That means, again, that you need to get your hands on that job description for the job that you want, read it thoroughly, and write down some key words out of that job description that you want to use in your resume. I'll tell you, as a hiring manager, nothing is more exciting than sitting down with a candidate and having them describe their background with the same categories and same words that you wrote in the job description. And you have bells start going off in your head. Oh my gosh, this is the perfect guy, or this is the perfect girl. This is great. And it doesn't have to do with anything that they did in the past in terms of sterile processing. It just means they know how to communicate who they are and what they want. That's one of the things that makes a powerful resume. So let's talk formatting real quickly. You should fear the white space. This means if you have a resume, try not to have little bullet points all to one side, all these spaces on the header and the footer. What all that white space says to a hiring manager: this person does not have a lot of experience, they didn't do a lot at their previous jobs, and therefore I probably don't want to hire them. Even if you did, it signals to the manager that you didn't. Now, this goes back again to knowing the difference between just a paper that says where you worked and a resume that says who you are and what you can do. If you're spending time writing out of those job descriptions into your prior work experiences, that page will fill up. And so let me stop here. There's a lot of debate around how long your resume should be. In sterile processing, for 99.9% of the jobs, if it's a technician, our supervisor, manager, director, you should probably still be writing one-page resumes. There are some exceptions, but I don't care if you've been doing a job for 30 years, you've got 4 certifications, you've got all these publications, you can write it all in one page and be a fantastic resume. Multiple pages does not signal that you are more experienced or better at your job. All it signals is you don't know how to be concise, and that may not be a good signal to send to a hiring manager. All right, just a couple of other important points here before I close, and there's a lot more to talk about. I'll probably do another round 2 on this topic. If you're just getting out of school, trying to get into sterile processing for your first job, I would be cautious about putting your GPA on your resume unless you have something to brag about, right? If you've got a 4.0 on a 4.0 scale, or if you've got a 4.5 on a 5.0 scale, you can sometimes say, yeah, it's a good idea to put that resume because it's showing that you did very well competitively speaking. However, if you had a 2.5 in college, don't include it on your resume. Just say that you graduated with this degree, and there you go. I've never been asked what my GPA was, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter for anything that you'd be doing in sterile processing. So it's probably a good idea to leave it off. I'm going to say something real quickly here about templates. Templates will get you into trouble. These are all the things that you can Google resume and then get a Word doc or get a PDF example and then plug in all your information. I can't tell you how many times I have seen a template resume sent to me for a job and not all the information was filled out properly, so you could tell that it was a template, but then there's just generic language in there that they never change, and it just gives a signal again that you don't really know what you're doing or you don't really care about the job. It's best to start from scratch, build it out in those little paragraph forms about who you are and what you've done and what you can do for us. That will take you the extra mile. I would also say to ditch the objectives category. Sometimes you'll see that, or even the skills category. All those things should be built into how you describe your previous jobs. Again, going back to that example that I talked about with the daycare worker. Any skills that she had write them in that paragraph form about how you applied them in your previous roles. That's way more punchy than a list of skills at the beginning of a resume. Same thing with the objective. I know your objective is to get this job. Okay, that's everyone's objective. That's why they're writing the resume. If you want to go to nursing school, for instance, and you just wanted to get this sterile processing job, it's still not worth putting into your resume. Have that conversation face to face with the hiring manager. Save that space to really talk about who you are. And then finally, I'll close with this. Today, you don't really need to put references available upon request or anything like that, because in the age of the internet, everyone knows we can get your references. And typically, even if you're submitting a resume, all these online application things, you got to type in all your references anyway, so they have your references on file. You don't need to waste space again on your resume. That's all for this episode. There's a lot more to talk about resumes. I want to keep this video short. We'll do it a round 2 or 3. Hopefully this is helpful. If you disagree, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments below, or if you have other ideas about great resumes, please share the love with the sterile processing audience. All right? Take care, keep fighting dirty, and we'll talk soon.